Hi, I'm David Miller, and I'm here with the final mini-lecture on George Cukor's film, The Philadelphia Story. Today we're going to talk about the night before and the morning after. Before Tracy can learn to be Yar, she has to get drunk. That's how the second movement ends, with Tracy throwing down highballs. The third movement opens late at night, with the party at Uncle Willie's mansion in full swing. Tracy is drunk, Mike is drunk, and George doesn't like what's going on. The heart of this movement is the moonlight scene back at the Lord Mansion, where Mike and Tracy argue and flirt and wind up in each other's arms. Tracy is drawn to Mike because she sees in him the kind of duality she feels in herself, and because he sees in her what other men didn't: passion. And so the passion comes out. Interestingly, we can follow the story of this passion by tracking references to Tracy's feet. That's right. By the pool that afternoon, Dexter tells her, "It's a pity your own foot can't slip a little sometime." After Mike kisses her in the moonlight, Tracy gives a kind of sigh and says, "Oh, it's as if my insteps were melting away." Then, when Mike carries her down from the pool, do you wonder what they have on under those robes? She greets all three men in different voices, with the sweetest notes clearly reserved for Mike. And then watch those feet.
Kittredge, I'd advise you to go to bed.
Well, I don't want your advice. I'm staying right here.
All right, you're making a mistake. Somehow I don't think you'll understand.
Maybe you better leave that to... What's that?
Oh, it's Mac, the night watchman. Always singing, Mac. Here's come on, I'll walk you around the house. Tell you all about it.
Something's going on here, and I'm staying. And so are you.
All right, then. Take the works. Only heaven help you.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere, and the dreams that I dare to do.
Don't stop, Mikey. Keep crooning.
Someday over the rainbow, way up high.
What is this, Connor? Now, easy, old man. She's not hurt?
No.
Not wounded, sir, but dead.
Seems the minute she hit the water, the wine hit her. Now, look here, Connor.
A likely story, Connor.
What'd you say?
I said a likely story.
Now, listen, if you
You'll
think
be
that...
down directly?
Yes, if you want.
I want.
Hello, Dexter. Hello, George. Hello, Mike.
Second door to the right, top of the stairs. Mind you don't wake Dinah.
5 feet of made of clay. Did you know? Good night, little man.
This is 1940, folks, so they aren't going to show us the kind of sex scene you'd get in a modern movie. This is as close as you'll come, but it's enough. All you need to do is reflect, as Dexter says to George, on the implications of what you've just seen. We come to terms with those implications the next morning. The fourth movement opens by developing the spy motif to its fullest. I said earlier that the movie makes fun of its own complicity in the motives of scandal-mongering and celebrity gossip by aligning itself with Spy magazine. It mocks itself in a similar way in the figure of little Dinah. She is the spy within the household just as much as Mike and Tracy are, and her eager curiosity about the sexual doings of the grown-ups is completely undisguised. She listens and peeks and is always alert for innuendo. And in the closing movement of the story, she's the one who reports having seen Mike carry Tracy up to her bedroom. Dinah's Dream is an apt title for this scene because the dialogue plays so cleverly with what really did or really didn't happen. Dexter keeps telling Dinah that she dreamed the whole thing, trying to convince her, at least, that what did happen really didn't. Meanwhile, Dinah, telling her dream to Tracy, convinces her big sister that what didn't happen really did. This scene is crucial to the plot of the movie because it triggers both Tracy's self-recognition and her breakup with George. It's also yet one more sign of the film's engagement with Freud. One of his more famous theories concerns what he called the primal scene. Freud argues that the unconscious contains a repressed image of adult copulation seen in early childhood. In the course of developing this theory, Freud decided that the memory might actually be a fantasy, something the child imagined but never actually saw. From the point of view of the unconscious, it wouldn't matter, for to the unconscious mind all images, whether memory or fantasy, are equally real. Dinah's dream reproduces the circumstances of the primal scene, a child spying on adults in the act, and reproduces along with it the uncertainty as to whether the scene is remembered or merely imagined. Dinah is a thoroughly Freudian child throughout the film, and the playwright is having some sophisticated fun with this aspect of the story when he has the little girl retell her dream. He is also, as I said earlier, having fun with the motive of sexual curiosity that Freud attributes to children and that pretty obviously drives the celebrity hunting journalism of Spy magazine. The magazine's title both connects it to voyeurism and makes it the forerunner of what we call the paparazzi. Early in the film, when Mrs. Lord asks, "Is there no such thing as privacy anymore?" Tracy replies, "Only in bed, Mother, and not always there." They're talking about Liz and Mike, whose identity as reporters has just come to light, but the line certainly foreshadows Dinah's dream, and it suggests a link between the two. The motive that drives celebrity journalism is equated to the curiosity of the little girl who creeps down the hallway and peeks into her big sister's bedroom at night. I guess the thing that interests me most about this film is the way these different gazes are tied to the way the story gets told. This is where the link is forged between storytelling, as we've talked about it in the other works, and the cinematic contract that gives us, the movie audience, our privileged glimpse into the sexual character of Tracy Lord. You remember her response to Dexter when he tells her about the terms of kids' blackmail? "So I'm to be examined, undressed, and generally humiliated at 15 cents a copy," she concludes. That's not a bad description of what the film itself does to her. In fact, her humiliation turns out to be the key to her reformation. Perhaps that's why, in an odd twist at the end, Sidney Kidd emerges to take the wedding photo. The action freezes as his shutter snaps, you've seen the clip, and the pages of the wedding album begin to turn, leading to the end. We aren't looking at the pages of Spy magazine after all. Dexter and Mike have blackmailed the blackmailer to end that threat, but here he is at the wedding, and it's hard to be sure whether the meaning of this conclusion is that Kidd's photos have been safely contained, they appear only in the family photo album, or that the difference between the magazine and the wedding album has been erased. After all, the closing of the book, after we see the wedding photos, does emphasize the way the movie audience has been peering through the camera into the lives of the Lords. To us, their lives have been an open book. Tracy, by contrast, wants her privacy. The family all shared that wish, and so in the end do the reporters themselves. At the heart of that privacy, as the film makes perfectly clear, lies the secret of what goes on in bed. That is Tracy's most intimate secret. So intimate, Mike slips away when Dexter starts to reveal too much by the pool. But the camera stays, and we stay with it to hear Dexter tell a certain version of the story. He is reading Tracy's character. She doesn't like the interpretation, and I have questions about it myself, as you've heard. But George repeats it, and her father repeats it, and Tracy comes to accept it so fully that she acts it out with Mike, letting her foot slip in just the way Dexter has said she should. That little toe curl you saw earlier is one telltale sign that Tracy is acting out with Mike her acceptance of what Dexter told her. Another clue comes when she quotes Dexter almost word for word. There by the pool, you remember what he said to her? You'll never be a first-class human being or a first-class woman until you've learned to have some regard for human frailty. Later that night, angered by Mike's prejudice against the upper class, she tells him,
Your intolerance infuriates me. I should think that of all people, a writer would need tolerance. The fact is, you can't be a first-rate writer or a first-rate human being until you've learned to have some small regard for human Aren't the geraniums pretty?
This moment may remind you of a passage from Pride and Prejudice, that other romantic comedy about a clever heroine who needs to be humiliated in order to become a proper wife. In speaking to her father about the need to restrain Lydia, Elizabeth Bennet starts to sound exactly like Darcy. I said this indicates that she's internalized Darcy's point of view, and that in doing so, she's made him a kind of father figure, for it was Mr. Bennet whose tone and style she was imitating early in the novel. This moment in the Philadelphia story indicates much the same thing. Dexter's speech by the pool affects Tracy much the way that Darcy's letter affects Lizzie. It shakes her confidence, makes her begin to question the way she's been viewing the world. But here, it's not Dexter's character that is being reread or read backwards. It's Tracy's. When we hear her repeating Dexter's challenge, throwing the words out now to Mike, it's clear that she has internalized Dexter's point of view, and that in this way her moonlight interlude with Mike is actually a way of following instructions. It's a pity your own foot can't slip a little sometime. Tracy slips. In doing so, she is acting out her submission to the story Dexter tells about her, reciting the lines of his script. Maybe this really is the true form of her story as well, and maybe they will live happily ever after. Dexter certainly has learned how to seem passive. He no longer needs the palm of his hand in her face to assert his masculine dominance. He can do it from the sideline and behind the scenes. But the final scene shows Tracy making her announcement to the wedding crowd with Dexter standing behind her, feeding her lines. And that leaves me wondering, guided by the camera, we've come pretty close to peeking into Tracy's bed, but can we really be sure what we've seen there?